This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
1, 2, 3. Lovely.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Maastricht Edition live on Facebook. Tonight we have with us the lovely Marieke de Witte, who will be talking to us all about sexual relationships during COVID and her interesting research into sexology. And we'll also have our usual fun and games, our usual segments, so Macro's Dutch, This Day in History, and Tracy's Tidbit. So stay tuned.
Yay! Good evening. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to the Maastricht Edition.
Hello.
Lovely to have you with us. Now, before we go any further this evening, I do have to make a little announcement.
Ooh.
Tracy has stopped Dry January. She is back on the wine in February. It could all go very wrong. She has also got with her a rugby ball. Now, for those of you who follow the Maastricht Edition, you know what a huge rugby fan she is. So she has a rugby ball in one hand and a glass of wine in the other.
Fabulous.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Very fast.
Yeah, absolutely, darling. So yes, indeed, it's Six Nations rugby. It's starting this weekend, and actually, Matthew, Ireland are playing Wales on Sunday. Ooh.
Oh, well.
Is this good or bad? I don't know.
It's bad for Ireland because we suck at the moment. But we're also playing. Well, we're playing Wales in Wales, so we're also away. So we'll see how that goes. England are playing against Scotland, and Italy are opening the tournament against France in Rome. So it should be a nice.
Teams are moving around then.
Yes, there are. I understand that they've been in kind of little bubbles for the last while, and I think there's not going to be people in the audience, if you want to call it that, in the stadium, but they are going to play the games, and they'll be televised, which is lovely. Yay!
Seriously, people, if you want to know anything about rugby, or you just want to talk about rugby, then get in touch with our Tracy.
I wish I only know a little bit about the Six Nations. After that,
Please.
You know what else was announced this week?
What's that?
Eurovision is going ahead.
Yes. Stay tuned for a news update.
Uh-huh.
Well, it just so before we go any further, I just want to say hello to Anna, who's here with us this evening. Hello, Anna. Nice of you to join us. Yeah, the Eurovision. So I had a message from Denis from hashtag today saying, have you had the email from Eurovision saying that we get credit for the tickets that we got last year? Obviously, he'd forgotten that I didn't have tickets for Eurovision last year and that he had about 24 of them or something like that. Yes, I think the way it works is anybody who has a ticket for the Eurovision Song Contest for last year, that was cancelled, you get a credit for buying a ticket this year, and it's going to be an online event.
Right.
We don't know the full details as yet. We will be getting Denise from hashtag on because he is our Eurovision man on the ground. So he will be giving us details of that leading up to the contest. But yes, anybody who has tickets, you get credit. But of course, if it's online, then all of us could probably buy tickets if we wanted to, but I really don't know how that works, because if you watch it on telly, you'd be watching it for free. So
yeah, indeed. I think it's all very up in the air at the moment still, but
yes,
the dates are confirmed, and I understand that there's still a discussion about whether all the countries will actually travel to Netherlands to perform at the Ahoy in Rotterdam, or if they will perform remotely, or if there will be a mix of both. I think it's all very uncertain, but the dates, end of May, are indeed confirmed.
So there's
so
something to look forward to.
Yay! But actually, I have to say, when Denis contacted me today, the first thing I did was, that Iceland song last year. I absolutely loved the Iceland song. And so I found it on YouTube and I played it about 5 times on the trolley.
Excellent. Well, I was also Googling some Eurovision trivia, and what was very interesting is back in 1970, Dana won for Ireland with the song All Kinds of Everything.
Okay.
And she won while performing in the Netherlands. And funnily enough, the year before, of course, the Netherlands had won. So if you're into kind of signs, Netherlands win, then Ireland, maybe this year could be going to Dublin next.
I just want to make a another note here. So while you're talking to Tracy about rugby, if you want to talk about Eurovision as well, then yeah, she's the person you need to speak to. So yeah, if you're a rugby fan and a Eurovision fan, I can't imagine there's that many that cross over. Like
there's only a few of us weirdos out there, so.
Yeah. But we've got that to look forward to, as Matt says. So we shall keep you posted. When we know, then you will know. And as I said, Denis from Hashtag is our Eurovision guru, so he will be joining us in the not too distant future to keep us up to date. So later on in the show, we've got Dr. Maastricht Edition. She's going to be joining us. She studies sex psychology, and so she's going to be giving us the lowdown on her studies and also how things have changed for us in our relationships over the last year, which of course, relationships just generally have changed dramatically. We've now gone from working outside of the house for many of us and only seeing our partners in the evening, and now we see them all the time. A lot of us have still managed to stay with our partners, which is quite astonishing. But it would be interesting to yes, let's drink to that. Yes, it would be interesting to hear what the doctor has to say about the dynamics of how things have changed over the last year. We've got Alfie in the house. Good evening, Alfie. Nice of you to join us. Hello, Jason. Hello, Jason from North Dakota. He's joined us this evening. Nice to have you with us.
Hello, Dan.
So how's your week been generally, guys? Anything new or exciting happened to you? No? Okay, we'll move on.
I'll tell you, the weather is quite bizarre. I had the day off work today, and we went out into the park for a walk around. It was positively spring-like. It was beautiful.
Today is lovely. The rest of the week.
Oh God, the rain! Talk about rain.
Yes, it's been a prime example of gloomy. It really has. It's been I've been waking up in the morning going, oh no, and that's not how you want to start your day. But today, yes, I looked out the window. I did the closest thing to a somersault coming out of the bedroom, which is basically me tripping over my husband's socks. But it was full of joy. It was a joyful trip, and it was the sun is shining. This is great. But yes, it does make a difference, doesn't it?
It does make quite a difference. But well, it won't continue that much longer, but it will be nice as well tomorrow. So get out there, enjoy it.
One thing I noticed today when I was feeding the goats, I was looking at my cherry tree, my very famous cherry tree that everybody knows about, the cherry tree, and I could see there was some little buds where the leaves are going to start coming out. You could see the little leaf nodes, as they're called.
How lovely! I'll up you on that one. We have a snowdrop in the garden.
Oh, lovely!
One snowdrop.
Wow.
It's just blown, and it's like, oh my God, there's a snowdrop there. So that's also quite nice to see.
That is nice, and it won't be long actually before we see some daffodils and then the tulips, and spring is not that far away. I keep telling my goats every day, spring's not far. Spring is coming.
I tell you one thing, I was out on our little patio at one point with little tubs today, and a gigantic bumblebee appeared.
No.
I took a photograph because I knew no one would believe me.
Hold on.
Enormous.
You say if it was that big, are you sure it wasn't a sparrow?
It was the queen.
I know my sparrows. No, truly. But I was shocked. And first of all, I thought, oh, the poor thing, he's injured. And I was off to get my, sugar water and try and save him. But if he kind of popped around a bit, waved his little front feet and flew off. But that was quite surprising. I've never seen a bumblebee in February. I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
It would be far too cold.
Well, I would have thought so too. But yeah, I don't know. I guess nature is a bit either ahead, behind, or also equally confuses all of us, perhaps.
Speaking of nature, I'm just going to throw this in before we move on. So I watched something very, very weird today. I'm a bit delayed when it's come to watching The Perfect Planet, that Richard Attenborough's latest series that he's had out on the BBC. And I watched an episode today. I'm just going to run this by you. This is really, really weird. And it does actually kind of tie in with our guest today. So in the tropics, you have these fig plants. Gibbons eat the figs, but they've got to wait for them to be ripe. Before they get ripe, there's a particular day when the fig fly comes along. It's 2 millimeters long, and the female burrows into the fig. She's a flying insect, but she leaves her wings behind because this narrow hole that she digs through into the fig, her wings come off. She doesn't need them anymore. And I'll tell you for why. She digs right into the centre of the fig. She lays a load of eggs. She's got a sack of pollen. She goes around pollinating all the flowers inside. She then dies. Shortly after that, the eggs hatch. There's a load of guys that hatch up. These are the golden fig flies. So they hatch. May I say, I know it's before the watershed, but they start copulating with their sisters, and they have a willy that's twice the size of them. It's huge. I mean, honestly, we're talking this enormous, great big funnel comes out into the eggs of their sisters. They do the deed and then leave. I mean, typical bloke. But anyway, yes, I mean, really. I was sitting there gobsmacked. This was all during my breakfast.
Well, bloody hell. My goodness.
I know. So the girls are pregnant. They leave the fig. They hang around for 48 hours, and then they go and bury into a fig. And so they're only around for 48 hours.
So does that mean if you buy a fig, is there going to be some fly inside?
Well, certainly these particular figs, but not that you're going to be buying them because the gibbon's going to eat them. But I mean, really. But you should have seen this. I mean, it was huge. It just suddenly appeared. It was massive. And I was like,
how did they film inside a fig?
I know. I mean, it's astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing. So I'm just going to leave that with you. Really.
Wonderful. Well, people, check it out. It's on telly. I think it's even on Netflix. You can watch this for yourself. Very cool. Thank you, Joe.
Well, you know, it's good to share. Apparently, our Jason in North Dakota, he's got minus 15 degrees there, so it's a little chilly.
That is chilly.
We're not going to complain about minus 5.
No, but is he talking Fahrenheit or Celsius?
Celsius.
Ah, okay then. Just wanted to clarify.
It's minus 15 C. Yes. That's Shrinky Willy kind of weather, isn't it? Matt.
No comment indeed.
Stuart's in the house. Good evening, Stuart. Nice to have you with us. Hello.
You're joining at the perfect moment.
How cold is it with you, Stuart? Tell us. I know Stuart's in the UK. Tell us how chilly it is there. Let's move on swiftly then, because it's time for Matt's review, I believe. And last week, I gave him an album to review that I was kind of, I was trying to find something that maybe he didn't like at all. And maybe I found it. I'm not sure. To me, it's an album I worship. I play it so often, and it's got loads of earworms in it. It's a film soundtrack, one of my favourite films of all time. It's Saturday Night Fever. So we gave him the soundtrack to listen to last week. Matt, what did you think?
Well, I was a bit concerned because all I know about the Bee Gees was that really screechy song, which I now can't remember the name of.
A screechy song?
Yeah, like really high pitched.
Tragedy?
No.
No?
It'll come to me.
Okay.
I was worried it was all going to be like that. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, right.
But then I listened to it, and actually it was fine. It was a decent album. I didn't hate it.
Oh, okay.
That's all right.
Yeah, it was not what I expected at all.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised.
Well, Joe.
Although I failed miserably when it comes to finding an album that he hates. I shall keep working on it.
That's true. That's true.
I'll keep working on it. Okay, so does it inspire you to want to watch the movie, maybe?
I'm not a huge fan of classic movies, I must say. Do you remember what that time I watched the one with the singing Puerto Ricans? And I didn't.
West Side Story.
I watched that one.
I wanted to see Puerto Rico.
But that's a musical, Matthew.
So like,
That's a musical, proper MGM musical. I think Saturday Night Fever is more of a movie with music in it.
Yes, exactly. And West Side Story, I mean, that was a stage musical before
Long time
the
ago.
movie. So, yeah. It's,
maybe it's
but anyway. But I think, no, it's, to be fair, the movie is a lot harder and grittier than West Side Story, that's for sure. West Side Story is all very girly and nice and romantic and all that kind of thing. But no, Saturday Night Fever was nowhere near like that. In fact, I remember when it came out, they did not director's cut, a children's cut.
Oh.
Or a family cut, because it was actually rated as an adult movie, and they cut out some of the violence in it so that families could actually watch the movie.
Wow.
That's how violent some of it is. So yeah, you wouldn't catch that in West Side Story, I can assure you. But if it comes your way, I would definitely recommend having a look at it for sure.
Okay.
Okay, so the Bee Gees have gone up in your estimations, have they?
Yeah, they have more range than I thought.
Oh, hurrah! Good for them.
Well, this is good.
Is there only one of them left at this point, Joe? I think they've all passed away, sadly,
There was
haven't they?
4 brothers, and 3 of them formed the Bee Gees. And yes, we only have Barry Gibb left, which is very sad. But as far as successful writers, producers, songmakers are concerned, I mean, you find it very hard to beat. I mean, they have touched, certainly from a producing aspect, so many artists. I mean, it's amazing what they've done over the years. It's just astonishing. Their catalogue is huge, absolutely massive. Okay, so how many Matthews out of 10 would you say?
Well, I had to think about it, and I decided I would give it a 7.
Okay.
Okay.
That's really good. I'll take that, considering I thought maybe it would possibly be, I hate this, can't stand it, thought it was shocking. Okay, this is good. I'm very pleased with that. Nice, that's good. Excellent.
Good job.
Okay.
Nice one.
Okay, so that means Tracy will choose an album for you for this week. What have you got for us, Tracy?
Yes, I'm going wild this week. So I've chosen for Matthew an album in my collection that I hadn't listened to for ages and forgot how good it is.
Oh.
So it is from a band, an American alternative rock trio who were formed in a place called Chapel Hill in North Carolina.
I know.
Do you know? And this is their second studio album. It was released in 1997. And Matthew, for you, I have chosen the fabulous album, Whatever and Ever Amen, from Ben Folds 5.
Excellent.
There we go. Hence the choice. It's a really, how would you describe it? It's a bit bluesy, it's a bit alternative, it's a bit jazzy. There's a lot of piano in here, Matthew, so I think it's appeal to you. There's stories, there's good melodies, there's fast songs, slow songs, upbeat, anger. There's a bit of everything in here. So I think you will like this one. Ben Folds 5, Whatever and Ever Amen. This is my choice for you for next week's review.
This is a very good choice, Tracy. I like it. So what would your recommendation be as far as where and how he listens to it?
Ooh, I think your normal choice of cooking is a good choice for this one. But be sure to have a glass of wine or beer with this one. And listen to it, because it's quite lyrical, and the words of the song, there's good stories in there. So give it a good ear. Just don't kind of have it on in the background. Maybe sit with a glass of wine and, whack it on and have a listen that way. There's not so many songs on there. I think there's only about 12. I've lost it.
Show off, though.
I wonder what that was. I'm a professional, Matthew. I'm moving on.
All she wants you to do is have a glass of wine and whack it on.
I think this is very good advice, Joseph.
It is very good advice. It is.
Let's see next week what Matt says.
This could be the advice for 2021. Have a glass of wine and whack it on.
I'll put that for one of our t-shirts.
T-shirts, yeah, t-shirts. Oh,
Right.
dear. Yeah.
Take note.
Brilliant. So there you go. Okay, so that's going to be Matt's review for the next week. I'm going to have to really dig deep here, actually, and try and find something that you dislike. And I know it sounds very cruel of me to do that, but no, I need to find something. I really do, because we've either gone. I don't think we've gone lower than is it a 5?
I think a 5 so far. Yes.
We've had a 5. We've had a couple of 10s, I think.
2 10s.
We've had 2 10s, which were both from Tracy's recommendations. So yeah, I shall dig deep and see if I can find something that he's probably going to turn off after the second song or something.
Stay tuned for next week. Interesting.
Stuart's telling us that it's very wet and mild in the UK at the moment, but they're expecting cold temperatures next week. So,
yes. I think it's actually even in Ireland they're expecting snow, which doesn't happen very often. So it's quite nippy. It's going to be quite nippy, I think, in the coming days. Guys, look out for your pets and feed the birds.
Yes.
Please.
Toughens the bug. Okay. I think it's come to that time, actually.
Oh, yes.
So, we can kick back, put our feet up, relax.
Have some more wine.
Have some more wine.
Have you guys ever seen the movie The Great Race?
No, I don't think I have, actually.
Oh, what a shame. Well, if anyone has, it's with the great, it's Jack Lemmon and the other chap. Oh, what's his name? Tony Curtis. And at one point, there's a scene in it where the guy, he's playing a drunkard. He's walking around saying, more brandy, more brandy.
Yes, I have seen. I know what you mean now. Yes.
More wine. Just had a little random connection there. Carry on, Joe.
More wine and whack it on. That is the advice, isn't it? Yes. Oh, Stuart's given us a recommendation for maybe. I think you'll like that though, Stuart. I'm not going to tell you what it is, Matt. But we have a recommendation from Stuart. I think he might like that. I don't think he's going to hate it. Oh, I don't know. Oh, it's tricky. But it's a good shout. It definitely is a good shout. Okay, so yes, let's take some time now. Let's relax. Let's put our feet up. We're going to get all zen-like because it's time for the whole country to come to a grinding halt. Because it's time for this history. Oh, for the love of God! Honestly, it sounds like your microphones have dropped in your wine. I mean.
Oh, now that you say it, it's okay. The wine is safe. We're good.
Okay, so today we're in February. Yay! It's the 4th of February, Thursday, the 4th of February. We're going to start off in your neck of the woods, actually, Tracy. We're going to Ireland because on this day, 1784, was the first unmanned balloon flight in Ireland.
Oh, hurrah! Up and away.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm not sure they thought this through, though. I mean, unmanned balloon flight, don't you need somebody in the balloon to steer it? To make sure it actually lands in a field and not on somebody's head? Or was it actually attached? I mean, it's...
Well, we have a lot of rolling fields in Ireland, so perhaps there was no danger of hitting anybody. I'm not sure. When was it? 1864?
1784.
Oh, it's so long ago.
Oh, that's okay then. We'll just move on from that then. In 1789, on this very day, it was the first US electoral college that chose George Washington as president and John Adams as vice president.
Yes.
And in 1794, on this very day, the French National Convention proclaims abolition of slavery. Good. In 1824, on the 4th of February, J.W. Goodrich introduces rubber galoshes to the public.
Well,
Lucy, are you a fan of the rubber galosh?
I've never had the privilege of one, I must say.
I don't know if that's singular. Do you have one galosh or 2 galoshes? I'm not actually sure.
Aren't they sort of connected? It's like a pair of pants. Boy.
Yes, I believe they are. So I think it's a pair of galoshes. I think it's such a great word, though. Galoshes.
Galosh. It's a good word indeed. Galoshes.
Galoshes. Galoshes. Matt, I'm sure you'd look fine in a pair of galoshes.
Thank you. I shall do that after this.
Oh no.
I don't know if there's anything else you can say to that, really. Oh, yeah, okay, thanks. On the 4th of February in 1849, the University of Wisconsin begins in one room with 20 students.
Wow.
I don't know if it was intentional that they started the university in one room. Now, being a recent graduate from university, Matt, how do you think that would go?
20 people in a room?
And it's a whole university.
It wouldn't be very exciting, would it? I suppose you get to know each other very quickly.
I think
That's
it's
good.
very well.
Well, I suppose they were starting out. I wonder how many students they have today.
Considerably more. It must be at least 22, I would say.
At least, if not 25 on a good day.
I have a vision that the teacher in this one room with the 20 students just said, have a glass of wine and whack it on.
Oh my God.
Life lesson. A life lesson. On the 4th of February 1913, Louise Perlman patents the demountable auto tyre carrying wheel rim.
Oh.
I'll just say that again. The demountable auto tyre carrying wheel rim. It is actually very
Still don't know what you're
Tracy.
saying. Okay.
Quite interesting. Is this something you'd find on a car then? It's yes.
Yes, pretty much.
Or a wheelbarrow. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, let's ask our audience. Would you find a demountable auto tyre carrying wheel rim on a wheelbarrow? I think not, Tracy, but hey, what do I know? In 1948, on this very day, Sri Lanka, formerly Ceylon, declares independence from UK. And in 1957, the first electric portable typewriter was placed for sale in New York. Now, in 1971, on the 4th of February, British car maker Rolls-Royce declared itself bankrupt. I'm not 100% sure about this. I think they've done that a few times, actually. I don't think that was the only time that they have been bankrupt. Now, here's the thing. In 1974, on the 4th of February, chimpanzee Nim Chimpsky signs his first word at 2.5 months.
Oh.
Now, I've always found this quite fascinating, actually, with our cousins, the chimpanzees, how they can do sign language. But yes, at 2.5 months was his first word, and he went on to do many, many more and have full-on conversations. It's quite astonishing. In 1974, in the Netherlands, on this very day, petroleum rationing ends.
Ooh.
And a few years later, in 1977, you'll know all about this, Matt. Rumours, the 11th studio album by Fleetwood Mac, is released. Harry goes on to win a Grammy for Album of the Year. Now, for those of you who have been regularly tuning into the show, you will know that Rumours was the first album that we asked Mac to review here on the Maastricht Edition. I don't remember how many he gave it. I think it was probably about an 8, wasn't it?
I think it was an 8. I shall check just to be sure in our little, because you can see all of this on our Instagram feed if you check it out. Yes, I do. I know.
Yeah.
Matthew gave it an 8 out of 10, indeed.
There you go, 8 out of 10. So yes, that's a fantastic album. Personally, I give it 10, but yeah. In 1984, on this day, Frank Aquilera sets the world frisbee distance record, 168 meters.
Wow.
Oh.
That's some wrist action. I'll give him that. For goodness sake, 160 meters.
He was probably nice and relaxed before he went to do it. He might have first listened to a CD.
Had a glass of wine.
Had a glass of wine.
Whacked it up. Oh dear.
Whack on, whack off, you know.
Wax on, yes, exactly. Yes. Whack on, whack off. Oh dear. those of you who've just joined us, you haven't got a clue what we're talking about. You'll have to go back to the beginning and watch it. In 1998, Bill Gates gets a pie thrown in his face in Brussels, Belgium.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of pie it was. I've probably had chocolate involved in it, I suspect. In 2004, Mark Zuckerberg launches Facebook from his Harvard dormitory room. He didn't know then what he knows now, that's for sure. And finally, in 2013 in Paris, France annuls a 213-year-old law banning women from wearing trousers.
Oh.
I'd heard this before. Yeah, sacre bleu. Oh, le pantalon, huh?
Oh, mon Dieu, petit quoi. My goodness. So, yeah, 230-year-old law. You couldn't wear trousers, apparently. And it took them to 2013 to sort that one out. Bizarre. Totally bizarre. Right, let's quickly run through some birthdays. On this day in 1677, Johann Ludwig Bach, the German composer, was born on this very day. Charles Lindbergh, the American aviator, who was the first to fly solo across the Atlantic, he was born in Detroit, Michigan. 1913, the amazing Rosa Parks, the American civil rights activist who refused to give up her seat on a bus to a white passenger, was born on this very day. And finally, in 1948, Alice Cooper. What can you call him? The rocker. That is, he was born in Detroit, Michigan on this very day. And a quick shout out to Spencer Ebsworth, who is celebrating his birthday today as well. Best of love from Mum and Dad.
Happy birthday, Spencer.
Yeah, happy birthday,
Spencer. Hope you're having a lovely day. Hope everybody's having a lovely day who has a birthday today. Hope you're having a great celebration wherever you are. And that was This Day in History. Thank you.
Thank you, darling. Very nice, very nice.
So there you go. Katrina's in the house. Hello, Katrina. Ellie's with us as well. Hello, Ellie.
Hello, Ellie.
Stuart is talking about the balloon flight. Not quite sure what he's talking about. And we have a link to follow. So.
Oh gosh, it's the Irish balloon flight, I expect.
I have no idea, but quite possibly. Yes. Or something to do with whacking on and whacking off, whatever. I don't know. Yeah. It could well be. Anyway, I think before we have the lovely Dr. Marie DeWitter joining us, I think we have a matter of the news, Tracy.
Oh yes, I hope I can get through this without giggling, but let's see what happens.
Tracy Taylor with the news.
Thank you, Joe, and good evening, everyone. It's February 4th, and you're watching the Maastricht Edition on Facebook Live. First, a look at your weekend weather, and tomorrow is set to be dry with temperatures of 11 degrees. However, come Saturday, things will change, and we will see rain and the possibility of hail and even snow. Daytime temperatures will drop to 2 degrees, and as of next week, things will get even colder. Moving to your news bulletin for tonight, and according to a recent poll, it seems support for the outgoing Dutch government's policy against the coronavirus is waning amongst Netherlands residents. Mark Rutte has said that a third wave of infections is inevitable, especially with the more contagious B117 variant, which is now causing most of the infections in the country. Dutch ministers are working on preparations to extend the current curfew, which had been due to expire in the morning of February 10th. In Tuesday's press conference, Prime Minister Mark Rutte said that while everyone would like to see an end to the curfew, a decision could only be taken after government advisors publish their recommendations at the end of this week. In other news, organisers of the Eurovision Song Contest said they will focus their attention on having all or most of the participating countries perform live at the Ahoy Rotterdam during the 2021 edition of the event. The organisation said there was still a chance that participants would have to perform remotely, but no matter what, the event will take place on May 18th, 20th and 22nd. And it seems that Dutch airline KLM has been ranked the 6th safest in the world in the 2020 ranking. The ranking is based on an airline's accident history over the past 30 years and the country-specific environment in which an airline operates. Emirates and Etihad Airways, both from the United Arab Emirates, came in first and second place respectively, and Scoot Tiger Air from Singapore came in third. Moving to local news, and a stowaway was found in the landing gear of a cargo plane at Maastricht Airport earlier this afternoon. The stowaway managed to survive the flight in the wheel arch of the plane that originated in London. It is not yet known who the stowaway is, but he has been taken to Maastricht Hospital with hypothermia. And following the opening of a vaccination location at the Mek in Maastricht, the GGD will now open a second spot at the Roda Hall in Kerkrade next week. A third injection site will follow at the end of March in Geleen. And it seems that people in Limburg have been supporting the local economy more often since the store closures in December. During this current lockdown, residents are buying more products from retailers in their own area. And Carnival was supposed to take place from the 13th to 16th February, but has been cancelled this year due to the pandemic. Some Carnival foundations are organising online events, but there will be no official physical gatherings. However, there are now worrying signs that people are planning illegal parties. And finally tonight, 4 young badgers have been successfully returned to a nature reserve in Overijssel. The animals were in shelters after losing their mother, but are now in a forest in the border area with Germany. They are handling their change well and are busy exploring their new environment. And that's it for tonight. For more local news, you can follow RTV News in English on Facebook and Instagram. If you are a local business, be sure to check out the Support Your Local Business South Limburg Facebook page, a joint initiative between #Maastricht and the Maastricht Edition. And if you want to discover events, concerts and cultural activities going on in Maastricht and the surrounding areas, head on over to the website of our partner, maastrichter.com, to see their awesome calendar of events. You can also follow them on social media. And don't forget that you can always find us on the Maastricht Edition Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, on Redbubble and on Instagram. For all the details, check out themaastrichtedition.nl.
Nicely done out, Tracy.
Thank you, darling.
Yeah, do you know the carnival being cancelled is a huge thing here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big thing if you're from Limburg for sure. So
Yes.
oh yeah, indeed. Anyway, kind of this part. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I know that there's already been some kind of messages on social media by the local mayor and everything that don't drink on the streets and don't come with your little carts with the music boxes and things. But yeah, I guess we'll need to see. It's next weekend, so yeah, there could be some revelry on the street. But yeah,
I think it could quite possibly be too tempting for some, actually, because it's such a huge part of the calendar here in Limburg. So I think it's time for us to have Dr. Marieke de Witte join us here on the Maastricht Edition.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Given the circumstances, we're doing okay.
excellent.
Well, yes. I mean, we're all trying to pull together here one way or another. But under normal circumstances, we would have had you in the studio. But this is great. We can't see what you're wearing. For all we know, you could have your pajamas on. So
Who knows? Who knows? I'm a sexologist, you know.
oh, so yes, maybe it would be more of a sexy negligee rather than pajamas. Let's not go there.
In my house.
Interesting.
So, as you said, you are a sexologist here in Maastricht. We're going to find out a bit about the sort of work that you conduct. But before we get that far, let's find out a little bit about yourself. My hunch is that you're a native.
No, I'm originally from Belgium. I did clinical psychology there, and then I did my sexology training in Amsterdam, and then I became an assistant professor in Maastricht. I wanted to go abroad, but yeah, really Maastricht is not really abroad when you're from Belgium. So yeah, and now in Maastricht I teach a lot on sexuality, also in national and international courses. I'm also very much involved in human rights and female sexual pleasure at an international level, and I do a lot of research on sexuality as well. Mainly looking at sexual arousal in couple relationships.
Now, of course, it's very easy for people, as soon as they hear that you're a sexologist, that they can start giggling and getting all sort of smutty about it. But of course, it is a very serious thing because it's a fundamental aspect of any successful relationship. Yeah. And I do think when couples are struggling in relationships, inevitably their sex life is maybe one of the first things that suffers.
Yeah, it is, exactly. And it's really difficult to say that a good relationship goes together with good sex and a bad relationship has bad sex. It's not always the case. You can have a very good relationship and still have sexual problems and vice versa. But there is a clear link, that's true. And sexual problems can be a source of stress and can create a lot of relationship tension. And what we often see when couples come into therapy with their sexual problems, often they have this problem for years. And then we ask them, yeah, why do you come now after 5-6 years? And then it's mostly because it's straining the relationship. That's one of the issues often, yeah.
So is there a particular area that you actually have been focusing on?
Well, mainly on sexual arousal in partner relationships, because sexual arousal is the most important variable in sex research, often because a lot of problems have to do with arousal. When we have a problem with orgasm, of erectile problems, or pain during sex, it basically comes down to something that is wrong with arousal. And when we study arousal, it's important that there are two components. On the one hand, you have this feeling of arousal, how aroused you feel, but also how your body reacts, your genital arousal. And these two are not always in sync. So it can be that your body reacts, but you don't feel aroused. And we often see that in women. And the thing
that's
is,
interesting.
Yeah, and the thing is that the way we measure this is mostly we invite, for example, women to come to the lab, they watch a pornographic movie. We have instruments that they can insert into the vagina so that we can measure their blood flow, so that we have a hinge on genital arousal. For men, we have a gauge that we put around their penis so that we have an idea of their erection. And then they're watching the pornographic movie, but they also indicate, meanwhile, like, how aroused do you feel? And what we often see is that in men, it's parallel. So when they have an erection, when they're aroused, they also feel aroused. And in women, what we often see is that their body does automatically react, but they don't feel aroused. Often it's male-oriented porn, so it's not really their cup of tea. And so this is an interesting observation. But we were thinking about this, like, okay, how are we measuring sexual arousal? They're sitting alone in a clinical lab, white walls, watching.
Yeah.
This is not really what is exactly happening when you have sex with your partner. So that's why we're actually one of the first labs in the world to really look at sexual arousal in a couple context, in which we bring both partners together in the lab, and they're not watching porn, but they're stimulating each other as it would be in an actual sexual interaction. So they stimulate each other, and then we can actually measure their sexual arousal, how they feel, and also how their body reacts, and also like how they tune their sexual arousal toward each other. Is it like when the one partner has more arousal, does it peak in the other partner as well? Because you can imagine if you have sex with somebody just lying there, like, get it over with, that also lower your own sexual arousal. So we kind of want to map that, like, what is exactly happening, how are partners tuning their sexual arousal. And also, well, is it functional? Do you have better sex? Do you feel better when you feel in sync with your partner? Maybe it doesn't matter. And what I also find interesting is to see, like, how does this grow? Is it something that grows over the course of the relationship, that when you learn to know each other better, that you sort of are more in sync? Or is it that some couples have that from the very beginning, and that's what they sometimes call this sexual click? So it's a lot of things we still don't know about how sexual arousal actually unfolds in the context of a relationship. So that's the main focus of our research. And so we have a nice living room-like lab in which we have nice lights and plants, and so that it's really the context which is also important to know, like, okay, you're in a sexual situation, you feel comfortable, and that you can sort of really engage in a sexual act with your partner.
But how do you find these people? Because surely it needs to be a certain type of person who's willing to go through that experiment and be observed.
Yes.
Can you then say that's general to the population?
But I think that's a general problem with a lot of research. I mean, it's always a selection if you're measuring depression or whatever. A lot of research has been conducted on first-year psychology students because they need to do experiments for their course. So a lot of results we have in science about all different things are actually based on first-year psychology students, which are mainly female. So there's always a bias, and especially, of course, for sex research, we realize it's a specific type of couples that will sign up to come to the lab and have sexual acts with each other. But in a way, we are really looking at this process of how partners tune toward each other. So, I mean, it's the basic knowledge. I can imagine that couples with huge problems will not subscribe for the study, obviously.
Mm.
Yeah.
Actually, picking up on what Matt was saying there, would I be right in thinking also, as much as a couple may be very compatible, that maybe men are more willing to talk about sex openly than women? Maybe there's a reluctance to open up about what they desire, what they want.
Yeah, we know that indeed, like if we look at self-report sex, I mean, girls are still sort of raised with the idea to inhibit their sexual expression, because as we have to be honest, there's still some kind of double sexual standard, that there's a slut shaming. If you as a woman have a lot of experience with sexuality and you openly talk about sex, then you're a slut. But as a guy, you're that's a good thing. So it could be that indeed that women are not really open to talk about their sexual desire because they feel they need to be a little bit more passive, a little bit more dependent, a little bit on the background. So all these factors do play a role, and I think it's really difficult to tap into sexuality specifically. But that's why I think what is so important if you study sexuality is that you look at different channels, that you look at emotional expression, how your body reacts, and sort of bring all this information together to sort of get an idea of what is exactly happening during a sexual interaction.
I was listening this week to a very interesting podcast, which is looking at how love works in relationships and the role that pornography plays in that. Because the millennial generation, so younger people, grow up, especially men, well, boys, grow up with their first experience of sex being through pornography. So for 13-year-old boys, their first experience of sex is through watching porn, and the way that women and relationships are depicted through that. So do you think in your research you're going to see some sort of correlation there?
Well, we know the thing is with porn, and there's a lot of research on porn, obviously, on what are the effects on sexual behavior, and especially on the sexual development of adolescents. And most often these assumptions, the research always assumes negative impact, like, oh, it's bad and it's not realistic, and young people start to imitate this behavior, and they expect that all the women are like having this great orgasms and squirting, and you have to come and whatever. There could be some negative impact, but we also have to realize about the positive impact of pornography. And the fact is that it's a good learning platform. It's a platform to experiment. You look information, you see, you get inspiration. It's good that parents talk with their children about sexuality, so that they can also sort of kind of nuance these images, porn, and that peers and at school, and that there's a good sex education. Definitely, this is really important. But at the same time, we just have to be careful, not always think about the possible negative effects of porn, but just realize that it creates a kind of openness, and it can also create an openness to talk about sexuality. And you have to realize that as a sexologist, what we often do when couples have sexual problems, we actually advise them to watch porn, because it's just not that you need to watch porn and sort of it as a must, as a new performance demand, as a standard, but it's more like to get some inspiration and just to start a conversation. Because when you're watching porn together, you can say, oh my God, what she's doing, I wouldn't do that. Oh, what would you like? What would you prefer? Because communication is the most important thing. If you want to have good sex, then the most important thing is that you need the right stimulus, like to know what you need to get sexually aroused, and to be sure that your partner gives you that sexual stimulus. But your partner cannot just know that. You have to tell him or her, and that's why communication is so important. And so watching porn can also be a good way to start communicating what you like, what you don't like, and so that adds to pleasurable sex.
Okay. So skipping possibly to what's been happening over the last year. So obviously we said at the beginning of the show how, you know, relationships will have changed because our partners under normal circumstances would have been out of the house, quite possibly. You know, you don't see each other all day and you see each other for a few hours in the evening. And now we're all stuck together, most of us, in the same house. maybe the excitement's not there anymore. Maybe certain behaviours are getting on our nerves. Surely that's going to have some kind of ripple effect on our sex lives when we've been stuck together for a good year now.
Yeah, it's the topic of the last month. It's a lot of research now on what is the impact of the COVID measures on sexuality and on relationships. And there are all kinds of information. Some people predict a baby boom. Some people say there's going to be a wave of divorces. And at this point, well, the evidence is kind of mixed, because what we see is that there are studies showing that there is no change in sexual behavior. I mean, especially for the couples who live together, we do clearly see a change in sexual behavior in singles and people living in long distance relationship, or people who are in non-monogamous relationships, because they really suffer, because these social mitigation measures are really conservative. They're really focused on the classic family. So that's a little bit of pity. So it's no change. Some say that there's more sex, some say that there's less sex and more sexual problems. I think it's really important to realize that it's dangerous to talk about means and what is the average impact, because everyone reacts very differently to stress. It's also how the pandemic will affect yourself. It's about how much time do you spend together and how do you appreciate that. It's about how was your relationship, because couples that had already problems now deal with a crisis on top of a crisis. Oh, yeah. Or maybe they don't have problems because they went to work, there was a lot of distraction, they had friends, and then suddenly they're stuck at home and they realize, oh my God, I don't have anything to say to my partner. So the problems are uncovered. So it can go different ways, and we have to be careful not to create new norms, new demands like, okay, this is the impact of COVID. It really depends. And I think for some couples, it can be a challenge because there's less time and less privacy. They have to balance roles. Maybe they gain some weight, less self-care. You're sitting there in your jogging and not putting on any makeup, or maybe also your partner. Where's the mystery? He's always there. Maybe before he was like an advocate, he was going to a law firm and then sort of has a nice suit, and there was kind of a mystery what he did during the day, and then suddenly he's sitting there in his joggings watching a computer screen. Where's the mystery? It's really what you say. It's also about a balance between being together and closeness and distance. You have to have enough me time and at the same time togetherness. And that's sometimes very difficult to balance when you're constantly together. So there are a lot of challenges, but there are also opportunities. And I think we really have to look at the positive side, that some couples just break routines. They variate their sexual script. They do something else. They give priority to their relationship now. Before they were like always working, and now they're at home and they invest time in their partner, so it can benefit the relationship. Maybe there's more self-care, more time for healthy cooking. You feel more sexually attracted. You do more efforts. You have time to discover new interests. So it really can go both ways. We just don't know. For some couples, it will be a bad thing. For some couples, it will be a good thing.
I think it's interesting actually, because throughout all this, most psychologists have said for your mental health, keep to a routine. Try and keep as close to your old routine as you possibly can. But for our sex lives, of course, routine is a killer. So
it's never a good thing. That's the clear paradox. It's about lust and love. I mean, we all want security and stability in our relationship, but at the same time, security kills desire. So it's really important I think this is a very good opportunity to break with routines, because, in the beginning of your relationship, you start to explore each other. You want to know, how does he work? How does she work? You want to explore each other's body. You take your time, you make effort, you have a nice lingerie and so on. But at a certain time, it kind of erodes, and you know the button. So you just press the button because when I do this, he will climax. And it becomes a very mechanical way of having sex, very efficient. So, but that's boring. So in a certain way, it's good to sort of try out new things. And what I think during this lockdown is just make time in the sense of do a sex break instead of a lunch break. Or maybe you can do some sexting, sexy messages while sitting at the same desk and just being horny and doing some dirty talk via sexting or whatever. I mean, you can try all these new things to spice up your sex. And I think it's really about making the effort. And even when you're sitting at home all the time, when it's weekend, dress up, play Italian restaurant, whatever, and just do something nice. Make time to create a context in which sexual desire can grow. That's really important.
Well, certainly the advice you would get from the Maastricht Edition is have a glass of wine and whack it on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been fascinating having you on the show, Dr. Marieke. Absolutely brilliant. Before you go, are you still looking for couples to come and help you?
It's really nice that you asked that, because I actually wanted to ask this as well. Our studies are up and running, so we have couple studies in the lab. We also have a diary study in which we look at the impact of COVID on sexuality. It's via an app, so you can do it at home. It's an online study, and it's really interesting. If couples are interested, of course, you get paid, and we always pay quite good. So please, you can always email fpn_coupleresearch@maastrichtuniversity.nl, or you can just email me, marieke.dewitte@maastrichtuniversity.nl, and we can give you all the information on the studies. It's all COVID-proof, very clean. The labs are very clean, so no worries about any infections or contamination.
Excellent. Okay, well, we'll put all of those details on our social media. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I suspect we probably could have talked for another hour, so maybe we can have you on the show again sometime.
I would love to. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, great stuff. Well,
there we are.
Interesting.
Thank you. Something different for the Maastricht Edition.
Well, yeah, but you know what? I think this whole COVID thing, it's had a ripple effect, hasn't it, with relationships? It really has. It's just every aspect of our relationships, not just with our partners, but with our friends, with our family, everything. I mean, it's had such a huge impact, and with our personal relationships, of course, things are going to change. So, we have to, and especially as some of us are not showering as often as we were before.
TMI.
TMI, Joe. I showered today.
Come on. There's plenty of, it's well documented out there already. There's plenty of information saying that the amount of shampoo and shower gel sales has gone down considerably. So yes, we're all maybe, well, not wearing certain underwear, or we're certainly not wearing suits at home, that's for sure. But anyway, we're running out of time. We need to move on.
I think it's time for Matt to go Dutch, surely.
I think it probably is. Matt, what have you got for us this week?
Well, as you may or may not know, this month is LGBT History Month. And for the first time, it is also Dutch Queer History Month. They've not done it before officially.
Okay.
So this has been celebrated since the 1990s internationally, but not every country has celebrations. But this year, the Dutch are launching lots of different events that you can get involved in online. So you can learn about important figures in the LGBT movement in the Netherlands, and about art, and even the Rijksmuseum is having an online tour of the galleries and certain pieces of works of art which have some sort of symbolism or sort of message to say to the LGBT community, and about sexuality and love and that sort of thing. So lots of stuff you can get involved in this month. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to tell you about a very important figure in the Dutch LGBT movement. He was called Bob Angelo, and he was the founding member of the COC, which of course we've had people on the show before. That's the main sort of Dutch LGBT organisation that fights for equal rights and sort of LGBT issues. So Bob Angelo, it was his pen name. His actual name was Nico Engelschman. And he was a very political man, even from a young age. And when he was 24, he realized he was gay and became involved in the gay emancipation movement. So this is during the 1930s, so very early on. And in 1939, he launched a magazine called Levensrecht about sort of gay rights, gay issues. And it was the first of its kind in the Netherlands. But sadly, of course, then in, I think it's 1941, the Germans invade. And that's sort of the end of the magazine and the LGBT movement, because the Nazis were not just sending Jews to concentration camps, but also gay men and women too. So he had to go underground, and he joined the Dutch resistance. And while he was working for the Dutch resistance, he launched another magazine or a pamphlet called De Vonk, which is about resistance topics, and delivered this door to door and also printed it in his house. So he's very, very politically active, very brave person to have the guts to go around and sort of really risk death, because he was also half Jewish, as well as being a gay man, very politically involved in the resistance and everything like that. So then after the war, in 1946, he launches the reading society called the Shakespeare Club. And this club is the forerunner of the COC. So it was the first organization specifically for the gay community, for gay interest, for gay political movement. So this later became the COC, but originally it was the Shakespeare Club. And in the first few years of the society, there was a lot of challenges for the movement, because the police were still very anti-gay, very much even attacking them, taking them to jail, etc. But eventually, working on the UN 1948 Declaration of Human Rights, he sort of really fought for equality for the gay community, and to end discrimination in working life, in day-to-day life, etc. So he was at the forefront of the COC for 19 years, and even after he retired, he was actively involved until his death in 1988. So I think he was a very, very important individual in the COC, in the sort of gay emancipation movement in the Netherlands. And sadly, his work is still very important today. Even in the Netherlands, where you have a lot of rights, there's still a lot of work to be done. So I think his legacy is very important. So that's Nico Engelsman, someone you should think about. And if you go to Amsterdam, when this is all over, and you visit the Homo Monument, the monument to gay emancipation, which is it's near the Anne Frank house, if you know where that is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's a big pink triangle in the floor, and the bridge next to that monument is named after Engelsman. So there you are.
Okay.
I've been across that bridge, but I was not aware of its name, and I wasn't aware of the triangle. So
there you go, something to go look at.
Absolutely. Interesting.
Wow. Thank you, Matthew.
Very interesting. Yes, like it, Matt. Like it a lot. Okay, well, we are coming towards the end of the show. Tracy,
yes.
While you're pouring yourself some more wine.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm taking up for it. It's one of these little baby bottles. It's not a full bottle, just to say that. No, truly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Make it up for dry January, I can tell you. Have you got any titty bitties for us at all?
Well, I do. Now, normally I would be very delighted to bring you a segment of weekly event highlights, courtesy of our partner, #Maastricht. But of course, COVID's still around. There's not much going on. However, I would give a shout out to their kind of sister company, which is Merchandise House of D. And they're fully online now. They also sell on ball.com. So if you're looking perhaps for some, movie merchandise or manga comics or anime, check out Merchandise House of D, because they have a very, very cool website with lots of cool stuff, comic books and all the rest of it. So, but instead of that, I am going to give a quick shout out to somebody called Kelly's Expat Shopping. These people are located at Amsterdam, Wassenaar and The Hague, 3 shops, but of course they are also available online. So, like many of us, for me it's November 2019 since I last went home to Ireland. Shockingly. I know all of us, if you're missing home a little bit, and sometimes food can remind you of home. Well, Kelly's Expat Shopping have a selection of lovely goodies, a lot of British stuff, also American food, and even some stuff from Australia, like Tim Tams and so on. So if you fancy it, you can go online. I've shopped a couple of times with them myself. The prices are reasonable, the shipping costs are good, and everything arrives really beautifully packed and ready to go. So that's an option if, coming up to the coming weeks and months, if you really need that tea or need that chocolate or something.
We just had an order from them.
Did you?
Cheddar.
We've got some bags of cheese. No, they don't do cheese.
No.
Can't buy cheddar.
Exactly. To anything that's kind of perishable, they won't.
It's really
Branston
from the
pickle.
UK now.
I got Branston pickle as
It's so
well. Yes, it's so nice. And crunchy nut cornflakes.
Oh, they didn't have any left when I ordered them.
We had the last box.
I had the last box, and they've got Cadbury stuff and bits and bobs, and also baking stuff. And for our friends in the US, if you like, they've got mac and cheese and stuff from someone called Betty Crocker, but it's quite popular, it seems. So
They're very famous.
Yes, so lots of things. So I would give a shout out there. Do some online
shop. Show, guys.
Ooh!
I'm
apping them right away. I follow them. I follow them on Instagram. But that's a good idea because, I mean, there's a big expat community down south. I know that their shops are in the north. By the way, Matthew, if you are in the Amsterdam shop or Wassenaar or The Hague, you can get the cheese and bacon and sausages, but you have to go in store. But they are still open because it's a food shop. So,
A top tip for the Australians, don't buy the hamper from there because it's got a boomerang in it. You won't be able to keep it in the kitchen for long. Oh dear.
That's so bad. It's not even going on the t-shirt list. I'm sorry.
That's really bad. That is really bad. But yeah, so excellent top tip there. And I did want to do a quick shout out to Hugo Parks, who was on the show last week. Was last week? Oh my goodness, all the days they're blending into one. Who's doing his charity run next month. Do go and sponsor him if you can, because he's going to be doing another one of his crazy challenges where he's running a lot. Check out
challenge, yes.
Yes, check out his page because for all the details there. So that's Hugo Parks running around Maastricht.
I'd also like to give a quick shout out to Wheelray and say prost to Tinny Van Voorden, who's watching and enjoying the show this evening. Cheers, Tinny. Prost.
Excellent. Cheers. Absolutely. So good luck to all the rugby players this weekend. Oh, there you go. See, as if on cue. I do love a rugby player. Thank you very much to our lovely guest, Dr. Marieke de Witte. We'll get all her social media info up on our social media at the end of the show. Fascinating stuff with her. It's been a pleasure having you all here. We've had loads of conversations going on social media this evening. Jason, last word from him. He says he's very proud of us all. We're feeling the love. We're feeling the love. We shall see you all again next week. I can't remember who's next week.
By Robert.
Of course. It's Valentine's.
It's our Valentine's special, people. It's all going to be hearts and cuddles and red and wine. It's fabulous.
Well, if ever there was an excuse to get on down and dirty, then there you go. I'm sure Dr. Marieke would recommend it. It's Valentine's. Let's have a glass of wine and whack it on. We shall see you next week. Have a fantastic week, and we'll see you for our Valentine's special next Thursday.
Lovely.
Bye, everybody.
Come on, Ireland! Woohoo! Yay! Ireland.